They finally get the license in 1973, and it was because they brought in 2 Caucasian in the application. And so that's how the bank was started.
Oh my God.
I mean, I got 1,000, they get 1,000. If you're a part-time, you work 20 hours a week, you got 1,000. Everyone's equal.
This is communist.
Yeah. In a way.
Art is not really about passport.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're doing a cross-culture.
In order to get customers to appreciate my sincerity, let's just grab a mic and sing a few songs.
It's a very different kind of entertainment as in the West.
At this point, it's too early for me to really be able to size up how soon Hong Kong will get back to the old glory.
The old glory.
I wasn't interested to be a banker. I said, that job, it would take me like 7 hours a week. I have nothing else to do.
Welcome to Pearl Lam Podcast. Today, I'm in LA at the Peninsula interviewing and having Dominic Ng, a good friend, amazing person, to speak to us. And Dominic, can you give a little bit about yourself?
Well, it's great to see you, Pearl. And in fact, I've known Pearl for many years, in the art circle, but I actually was born in Hong Kong and came to U.S. Back in the late 70s, and so it's been here for a long time. And so it's been the chairman, CEO of East West Bank for the last 32 years. So that's still sort of the bulk of my career, and then still doing the same job today.
And also you're chairing the APEC as well, right?
Yeah, in fact, last year, the White House appointed me to be the chair of the Business Advisory Council of APEC. And we ran, 120 meetings actually altogether last year. And with the finale in San Francisco. So when 21 economies leaders came to San Francisco to talk about, sustainability and digital innovation and how to be, more effective in trade, investments, and helping small middle market business and indigenous business and so forth. So that's what that's the other full-time job that I had last year besides being the CEO of East West Bank.
I know that you started a bank at the age of 30. And your background is certified public accountant working in Deloitte, if I remember right. And then all of a sudden you start a bank at such young age. How did it happen? I think it's really and interesting for people, for audience who knows that immigrants, right, coming here, having this opportunity, starting a bank, and explain to us.
Well, I actually had no aspiration to be an accountant or a banker. But when I first came to college here, actually back in Houston, Texas, I started actually like a typical foreign student that I started at the first semester at chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering?
Yeah, that's right. But I, from Hong Kong, I study all these subjects with calculus, physics, chemistry, biology. So my first semester, straight A's, I really didn't have sort of like any study that I need to do. And I found that I was just wasting my time in America studying something that I already learned in Hong Kong. So I switched major to something what I thought would be more interesting to learn about American culture. So I switched to communication major and learned about radio television for about a year. Then my brother came visit me and he said, "What were you doing? Are you thinking about being a weatherman in like a Corpus Christi in Texas or something like that?" He said, "This doesn't make sense for me as a person from Hong Kong to look into a career that in anywhere near to radio, television, or filming and any of those stuff." So at that time, it was kind of, if I switch back to engineer, it will take me full 4 years to graduate. So rather than that, I wanted to graduate fast. I wanted to finish my degree in 3 to 3.5 years. So, but to do that, the only professional major I can got into and was public accounting, well, like accountant, to be a CPA. So I managed to finish school in 3.5 years, got my accounting degree. And at that time, the best job you can get as an accountant that actually for foreign student would be in the public accounting. So I was fortunate, like not all the accounting firms actually would hire foreign students. But,
Because they have to get a visa, right?
yeah, exactly. Some of them, they just say that if you're a foreign student, they don't want to deal with the application for H-1 visa and all of that. But Deloitte and Touche, at that time it was Touche Ross, but later on became Deloitte and Touche, actually was interested to hire me and willing to do all of those paperwork to help me to get a green card. Took years, but I finally got my green card, but I spent almost 10 years at Deloitte and Touche. Started in Houston, and then several years later, transferred to LA. And when I was in LA, one of my clients, actually from Singapore, and they have a huge conglomerate headquarters in Indonesia, they asked me to help them to acquire financial institution. So I bought a small bank for them in LA in 1989, and then, but it turned out it was too small, that they want something bigger. So, and then I bought another bank for them, and at that time in 1991, I bought East West Savings and Loan for them. It's still very small, but at that time it was much bigger than the other one. It was 600 million in assets, and so I bought it for them, and then helped them to make a couple of more acquisitions, double the size of the institution, from 600 million to over $1 billion, from LA to LA and San Francisco. And but in 1992, I think the regulators asked me to look into hiring additional professional CEO.
But at the time, you were the accountant as an advisor,
Yeah.
but not running the bank.
Yeah, I was the advisor, and once I bought the bank, I was chairing the board executive committee.
But you were still working with your accounting firm.
Yeah, and then I left the accounting firm and then working for them full time. But
Because they were asking you,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But I was managing all the investment in United States, and also helping them to expand their business into China as China just opened up. So, but in 1992, when the regulator said that we need better professional management, so they did talk to me. So at that time, I talked to them about, hey, let's hire a seasoned banker to run East West Bank. And they waited several months and then finally told me that, no, it wasn't a good idea. They said, you're doing it. And at that time, I actually, as the advisor, I strongly advised them no, because I said, this, by the way, at that time, East West was a bank that focused mainly with the Chinese American community.
Oh, really? East West Bank has always been Chinese American.
Yeah, it was founded 51 years ago, focusing on helping the unbanked to get banking business. Because at that time, back in the 50s and 60s, Chinese Americans were not able to get banking in the mainstream community.
Really?
Yeah, because think about it, in 1882, there was a Chinese Exclusion Act that lasts about 60 years. And during that
Chinese Exclusion Act.
in 1882, U.S. Congress have approved a new law in 1882 that exclude Chinese to be American citizen. So technically, the Chinese who lived in America from 1882 to 1942, they have no legal rights. So banks do not want to do banking with them, and they couldn't buy homes because the various neighborhoods would not sell houses to them. So that's why the business leaders in the Chinese community wanted to start their own bank, but it took East West founders literally almost 20 years to get a license. Almost 20 years to get a license. So they finally get the license in 1973, and that was because they brought in 2 Caucasian in the application. And so that's how the bank was started.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So from 73 all the way through the 90s, it was mainly focusing on serving the Chinese American population, but the bank thrived simply because there was a continuation of immigrations,
Yeah.
and they continue to get more business helping the Chinese immigrants. And first, immigrants that did not have credit history came to East West Bank, were able to get mortgages, auto loans, and things like that, credit cards. But when I took over, so when my shareholders insisted that
How did they persuaded you? Because you were having a very stable job
Yeah.
in a big, at the time it's big eight. You could do promotions.
Yeah, I was very, very comfortable with my job. I actually didn't think I would leave the firm, and I thought I would retire as a partner there.
Yeah,
and
as
then
a
that,
partner,
that would be
exactly.
I never really liked to move around anyway. I kind of like a one job kind of person. So, but they were very convincing, and they talked to me about their aspiration about expanding the business in Asia to United States, and that, in a way, is what I've been doing at Deloitte & Touche and connecting our Asian clients to U.S. So, and they are actually doing these investments, like buying banks, doing real estate projects in California. They were looking into buying big brand into U.S. so that they can have their manufacturing arm in Asia to basically add up the synergy. So it sounds very exciting. They asked me to go to China to help them to look into potential growth opportunity.
1989.
1991 and 92. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I've never been in China before. Even though I was born in Hong Kong, never been in China.
Yes, like me, never been.
Yeah, so
Until
for me,
1992, I went.
going there in 1990, 91, 92, it was fascinating for me. So I wasn't interested to be a banker in a Los Angeles local community here. I said, that job, it would take me like 7 hours a week. I have nothing else to do. I used to work 70, 80 hours a week at Deloitte & Touche. I just didn't know that the pace would be appropriate. And also, I really felt strongly as a professional that at my young age, actually I was 32 years old at that time, I said at my young age, it wouldn't be appropriate to be a CEO of a financial institution that mainly catering to the Chinese American customers, because Chinese tend to respect the elderly.
Yeah,
When they see a
absolutely.
person that looked like a kid, they didn't think that it would be the
Serious,
right person that for safety and soundness purpose. So I said I didn't have the right image. No matter, it didn't make sense for me to try and to explain it to our staff, to our customers, and the competitors will use that to our disadvantage to say that, they brought in a kid, the wealthy billionaire from Asia brought in a kid, and then this is going to be a disaster. I said, you don't want to do that. But the husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Nurseman, they said, no, you're going in. So I went in, and I thought I would just work 4 years and be done. But at 4 years turned into now 32 years.
But then you expanded because you were taking your whole mission changes.
Yes.
It's not just servicing the Chinese Americans, but you were taking Western funds from the West to invest in China.
So my first idea was to come up with the vision mission statement. And I said, well, the bank was East West Federal Savings Bank. East-West. Why are we only doing business with Chinese Americans? We ought to be the financial bridge between the East and the West. So the first thing I did, I told the shareholders, I said, we ought to be expanding into the mainstream community, be that true financial bridge between the East and West. We'll never abandon the root and the founding principle of helping Chinese immigrants. I said, that's such a great mission.
Yeah.
We ought to do that. But in addition to that, in order to help our Chinese immigrant to better assimilate in American society, to enjoy the full benefit to be U.S. citizens, East-West need to take the lead to be in the forefront and march down to the mainstream communities. When we are completely involved with the mainstreams, we can help our customer to reach further.
How do you persuade in the West to put the funds in China when China was in 1992 is very early?
At the beginning, our customers that we attract from Asia to invest in the United States, they are from Hong Kong, they are from Taiwan, they are from
Asians.
They are basically Chinese diaspora
Yeah,
from
China diaspora.
all these various, except China, like in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in Singapore, in Malaysia,
It's all the overseas Chinese.
in overseas Chinese. And so that's when I got business from in the early 90s, and that match up with mainstream business in US. Because for them to invest in properties, for them to invest in any kind of business in US, they need to work with US business. And so we, East West Bank, myself particularly, the bank was so small, I was able to be the lead business development person that I personally went out.
How many staff at the time when you began?
200 people.
Now?
We have 3,400 people now. Yeah.
And then your asset grow from 600 million to 52 billion.
No, to now we are 70 billion.
70 billion.
Yeah. So we are completely different size. I bought East West at 40 million for the Nursulem, and today we're over $10 billion market value. So it's a very different size bank. And we're now the largest bank headquartered in Southern California, and then the second largest bank headquartered in the state of California. So it's a different kind of scale, but it took 32 years to get here. And
was it difficult because it's basically you're Chinese American banks, okay, being in IPO. So what was the reaction at the time?
Well, it was interesting because we actually were asking for quite a premium too. It's not like we sell it cheap and all that. We're asking for a price to book value, which is much higher than today's kind of multiple. But most institutional investors never heard of East West Bank.
Exactly.
Because we're a California bank, we never got into.
And also, you were Chinese, overseas, the diaspora. So.
Yeah, but what I did was it took me only 2 weeks to raise all the money.
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks, and I flew into many different cities, and then particularly New York, like a whole week in New York, and then the rest of the week in all the rest of the country, targeting mainstream institutional investors. But the pitch book that we used was basically the mission of East West Bank. We would be the bridge between East and West. We showed the financial performance for the last few years, which we did pretty decent. Not as good as it is today. Today we are the best perform. Last year we ranked as the best performing bank by S&P, by Forbes, by a few other sort of banking publisher. We weren't that good at that time, but we had a pretty good vision. The other thing that I had was I personally invest. Myself and my chief financial officer, we both personally took our savings.
To buy the shares.
Withholding the tax that we have to pay, we actually sold the mutual funds that we invested for all these years at Deloitte & Touche. I took the money, I said, I'm buying East West Bank stock at the same price that you are buying. I'm not buying it at a discount. I'm not asking you to give me shares. I'm buying at the same price. And many of them, to my surprise, were just for that reason, were so impressed and said, if you're willing to put your
own money
and so much of your own money into believing this bank, we will put 10 million or we'll put 15 million. And for them, those are just
peanuts,
some chump change, right?
Yeah.
So just like that, we brought in all the investors. And then the other thing I asked for was, I said, if I ever be able to do this management buyout and took over this bank, what I wanted, I had one wish. They said, what? My one wish is that every year I want to grant stock to every single one of East West Bank employee. What I said is, I don't care whether they're part-time, full-time employee, every single employee gets stock every year. And I said, everyone get the same amount, and I want to do it at Chinese New Year. Every Chinese New Year, you get the red envelope instead of getting like a $10 cash or that.
You get shares.
I give them stocks. And so we started with $1,000 a year. I got 1,000, they get 1,000. If you're a part-time, you work 20 hours a week, you got 1,000. Everyone's equal. And the whole idea of doing this is that I said,
hey, this is communist.
Yeah. In a way, I kind of said, every one of you work for me.
Yeah.
I'm the boss, right? But I work for every one of you because you are my shareholder. So the whole idea is this symbiotic relationship. That is that if you are a shareholder, you own the bank, I work for you, and then you also work for me because I am the most senior manager. And this symbiotic relationship get everybody to feel like they have the pride of ownership.
Yes.
Have them have the pride of ownership. And I'm proud to say today, for those in 1998, when they get their first grant, all the way to today, even a part-time teller that make almost like minimum wage, they now have, if they haven't sold any of those shares, just like the annual grant, a Chinese New Year annual grant, they will have like $400,000 or $500,000 net worth.
Wow,
So
that's very good.
My people are doing fine, right? And then for those who actually get additional stock bonus every year, they're doing well.
They're doing very well.
If they stick around. For those who don't stick around, that's not my problem, right? For those who stick around, they're doing fine.
So, Dominic, let me ask you, when did you incorporate art, culture, and philanthropy inside your mission? Because you started to actually acquire Chinese art and donate it to MoCA, LA. So to make sure that they understand Chinese contemporary art, because support and using culture as an exchange to have the East meet West, so the Western culture can actually appreciate and understand Chinese culture much more. When did you think of doing that, and how did it all happen?
Sort of the seed was planted in 1992 when I said we ought to be a bridge between East and West. We ought to help Chinese or Asian immigrants to assimilate and benefit to be U.S. get the full benefit of U.S. citizen and then find a way to reach further in American society. And if you think about that, it's not just financial. It's not just helping them financially to reach further. It has to be a more socially. So from my perspective is that we start with the first phase being the financial bridge between East and West. Okay. So in the 90s, I felt very comfortable that myself at Deloitte & Touche, all my clients are mainstream anyway. So I was able to bring in mainstream clients at East West Bank one at a time in the 90s. I felt pretty good about it. And then once we get into 2000 and the next century, so to speak, I started looking into getting more involved with the community. For East West Bank to be a bank with the mainstream, if I'm not visible in the community, nobody notices, right? So from that on, I took the first challenging assignment. I became the campaign chair of United Way of Greater Los Angeles. That year, that was year 2000, the first Asian American ever in the Greater Los Angeles area to be the campaign chair. And I raised a record amount of funds, $66 million. Year 2000, this is 23 years ago.
Very good, 23 years ago.
Broke the other people's record. And the reason I was able to do that, I had a lot of help. And one of them was Eli Bro. Eli gave me $5 million to make sure I broke the record. Because he said, well, how much you need to break the record? I told him about the amount, and he said he had a couple of more million more just to make sure I broke the record. So having a lot of these very established business leaders in the community who all looked at me as the young small bank CEO, and also the reason I did it was to help Asian American to be more visible in the community and participate more in the mainstream community. So I think that he then asked me to replace him for the Asia Society in New York, which I did. And the next thing happened, he talked to me about joining the board of MOCA, which I actually declined. The reason I declined was I felt like that I wouldn't add much to MOCA because I wasn't at that time actively engaged with the contemporary art scenes. But I came up with a different idea for him. I said, hey, Eli, what about I would acquire a collection of contemporary Chinese artwork and donate to MOCA?
That was when? That was
2003 when I had this conversation with Eli. And he said, oh, that's a brilliant idea. I said, look, as by doing that, I would be able to help MOCA to be the first museum in the United States to have a decent collection of contemporary Chinese artwork. Wouldn't that be good? So the museum liked the idea. He liked the idea. I loved the idea because I thought that by East-West donating this artwork will help, artists to get exposure.
Yeah.
Will help Americans to get also exposure of Chinese contemporary art. That Chinese art is not just antiquities. It's not just terracotta soldiers and 10 horses. It actually have great contemporary artists doing great artwork. So that's what I thought that I would go into that direction and help supporting art and then help bridge the culture between East and West. So it was 2003 when it started. We continue on for 2 or 3 years, and we brought in like about 20 some odd pieces of artwork and for MOCA. But the arrangement was, since I don't want them to put everything into storage after a few months of exhibition, so I said, while you donate it, we'll place it at the East-West Bank headquarters.
Because it was amazing, because we visited East-West Bank. It's all the Chinese contemporary art and artwork all over the bank, which is very impressive.
Yeah, and then what we decided that it need to be permanently shown. So if it's not going to be shown permanently at MOCA, let's just display it at East-West Bank because we got a lot more foot traffic that they can get. And so by doing it that way, whenever there is a piece that need to be loaned out to any museums around the world, or if MOCA wants it, they can have it. But in the meantime, we just display it at the bank. And so that's the arrangement. It worked out really, really well. Yeah.
And also, you've been doing East, West, West, East, but with today's geopolitics situation, does it affect your business? Because, how do you bring money, investment from West going into China when the whole American politics is saying that they don't want funds from the West going in?
Yeah, and actually it's a lot harder, but that's why actually we've done better and better financially. The reason I said we've done better and better financially is because now the political environment is so difficult, most banks wouldn't want to have anything to do with
China
cross-border business.
Cross-border,
Or they get confused. Sometimes they get confused even if it's not China. They say, we don't have anything to do with the Asians, so to speak. It is interesting because I would say 10 years ago, many banks in the boardroom start talking about China strategy 10 years ago. But 4 or 5 years ago, many banks in the boardroom talk about make sure that we exit every business that have anything to do with Chinese companies.
Yeah.
So for us, we understand the political landscape. We understand what are still business you can do, what are the business you cannot do. We understand that that is sort of out of our footprint and we shouldn't be messing with it. Same thing in China. They also have their challenges that we want to make sure that we do not get involved with that kind of business. But let's think about it. There's a lot of business still going on between U.S. and China. The shipment of goods hadn't stopped. In fact, trade between U.S. and China is still huge. And And East West is just a sliver compared with all the trade and investment that going on between U.S. and China. So we are still involved with the business, but we're staying out of all of those other stuff that we shouldn't be involved with. And somehow, because of our continued engagement, we're actually financially doing better, even with tariffs and with all
Yeah,
these
with the
restrictions.
tariffs and all that.
Because we know how to navigate in the rough sea. We are truly expert of cross-border banking. We understand how to navigate, and we actually add values. And in the same way, like if you look at in art, during COVID, everything shut down. Museums, art galleries, artists, they were all looking desperately and saying that, how do we sustain our business when everything shut down? And when the U.S. government are providing financial support, the U.S. government used banks to distribute, the grants to all of these different, like whether you are artists, whether you are doing business, or you are art galleries or your museum, they're all eligible to receive grants. But some banks busy working. Some banks a little bit lazy and not working.
I know that since it's COVID, East West Bank has lots of galleries account.
Yeah.
Most of the galleries account is with East West Bank.
Exactly.
It is amazing.
Yeah, and my private banking teams just work 24/7 for about several weeks in a row, and whether they are museums, art galleries, and through them, they introduce us to the artists, and we just like one customer at a time, and we open the accounts, bring them on, and help distribute the government sort of like funding to them, government loans to them, and help them to get through that rough period. But through this COVID time, we have so much more exposure with so many galleries and then artists and then museums. I said, East West Bank now, the largest bank headquartered in Southern California. We have a bigger role, bigger scope, bigger responsibility. So we start doing banking with African American artists, Latino artists, women artists. And I said, why shouldn't we promote them?
Yeah.
Because we are always the one that helping the one who need help most. Women business, Latino business, African American business, these are all the underserved minorities.
Absolutely.
We should support those artists too. So we started, when I first brought the artwork to MoCA, those were the top of the line Chinese contemporary artists.
All the big
We
names.
started going to the emerging Asian artists several years ago. And then the last 4 years, we're collecting from Lauren Halsey, like Devin Johnson and Alfonso Gonzalez and Lucy Bull. And then
Because
we just,
art is not really about passport.
exactly.
Yeah, because you're doing a cross culture.
Exactly. So we're reaching out, reaching further, and then we are helping our Chinese collectors who are appreciating African American artists, appreciating Latino artists, and women artists. So this is something that it gave us a lot of joy to be that cultural bridge in between. So we're not here just to help non-Asian Americans to appreciate Asian art. We're also here helping Asian
To appreciate
collectors
what is it,
to appreciate, get better
International,
exposure to the international art scene.
You never intentionally using art or culture as a soft power, but all this happened by default because of your interest, right?
Yes, I mean, because I looked at it with anytime you wanted to do something well, you have to have a passion to it. And I'm very interested in art. I'm influenced by my wife. She's actually she's a good painter, but she just wouldn't tell people that.
The selling paint. Oh, my God,
she
I
has
should ask her.
Yeah, we have actually, well, next time, you don't remember, but next time you come to the house, we have a few of her paintings on the side. Yeah.
Wow.
And my daughter.
Yes, of course, your daughter.
She's at Christie's, so they both are very engaged in art. So it's easy for me to get those influence. And I have very good friends in the art world, like yourself actually have introduced some really brilliant artists to me, which I really appreciate, you know. And it's not just about appreciation of art, but, you know, in terms of having the opportunity to engage with these
Yeah,
brilliant
engaging
artists,
with them.
it just makes life so much more fun.
Absolutely.
And what I found is that the collectors that we help, that they love to engage with living artists.
Of
Right?
course.
One of the good things about collecting contemporary art is that you're dealing with living artists. I don't have to worry about fake work because I see the artist just finish the paint and then I say, okay, I'm taking it, right? So it's fun. And I think that's the part that I think having that passion, the drive, and that makes it easier to get the mission done appropriately.
Dominic, I understand and I know that you are also musician. You play guitar. You have a whole collection of guitars as well. So I remember you once told me that when you were studying secondary school, you were in a band, and that helps you doing business in China because the karaoke you have to sing to network. Without the singing, you can't network with all the people. So you have to sing and you have to drink. Drink. Am I right?
Yeah, that is right, half right. I never have the alcohol capacity to drink.
So
In fact,
so you sing.
even today, when I need to go to places that I need to drink,
Yeah.
or it's appropriate to have the party to be drinking, I usually get two designated drinkers to
Yeah,
come with
you're
me,
too stuff to drink
so
for you.
they can just ganbei, I mean, and get it all taken care of. So I don't have to drink at all. But yeah, the particularly the early years at East West Bank in 1991, 92, 93, 94,
Well, when you have to
95,
get business, yeah.
those years, karaoke was big deal.
Big.
In order to get customers to appreciate my sincerity, let's just grab a mic and sing a few songs. So, yeah,
It's a very different kind of entertainment as in the West.
in fact, initially it was challenging because when I was in the band, I play rock and roll music or folk, progressive folk music. So it's like it's all, like whether the Beatles, Eagles, and that kind of songs, And to sing karaoke, I need to sing Chinese songs, which I didn't know too many. But I go to a karaoke shop, bought a laser disc, and then watch it a few times. It's not that difficult. So I mean, and then after I watch it a couple of hours, I have several tunes that I know I can do it. So
Let me ask you, you are in China a lot of times. So how are the Chinese feelings about America, American politics, especially when they're withdrawing and not investing in China? Do they feel the impact?
oh yeah, I mean, to many of them, it's very discouraging for the last several years because for, I guess, by and large, a few decades since Deng Xiaoping's started, open up China in the 80s, for a few decades, U.S.-China relationship have always been more collaborative, and occasionally there is some, disagreement, but I would say by and large, very much more collaborative. Until, I guess, since 2017, it's very contentious. So most of the folks, when they're business folks in China, they just wanted to find a way to have a constructive relationship. And what they hope for is that agree to disagree and work on whatever they can agree with, and then trying to respect each other for disagreement. But that formula doesn't work anymore.
It
So
doesn't work
to
anymore.
that extent, there are a lot of somewhat, I would say, discouragement. But I think that by and large, I don't see U.S. and China can decouple because there's just so much
Trading going
trade
on.
and business going
Yeah.
on. There's so much actually even cultural exchange already happened. And if you look at it in the United States, we have millions of Chinese immigrants that live in the U.S. But it's the same thing even in Europe, in Australia, Canada. There are so many Chinese immigrants that already settled in those different countries. I looked at it is that, by and large, I think that the Western world and China would need to find a way to somehow build back a somewhat constructive type of relationship. And I do believe that at some point it would happen. U.S. and the rest of the world pretty much have outsourced the supply chain
Yes, yes.
almost completely to China. So this sort of like rearranging the supply chain or decoupling, it's just not viable.
But don't you see that last few years, they realized that China is is the main supply, and because of the COVID, they cannot deliver it, and so there was broken of supply chain, and a lot of factories has moved to Vietnam, Bangladesh, and all that. So it must hurt China because China needs that in this
Yes.
industry going. So do you feel that there will be a better system in China? They recognize what is going on, and therefore, I mean, in the future, the relationship would be better.
Yeah, in fact, because this is what I'm looking at, because it's not healthy for U.S. to have 90% of the import coming from China.
Of course.
It's neither would be healthy for China to be
Dependent
so much on like the U.S. or the Western world. So what China's been doing right now, which they've been doing actually for several years, but they have to accelerate the domestic consumption.
Yeah.
So those things are all happening right now. Mexico, there are a lot of Chinese investment in Mexico right now. Why? Because that's what U.S. wanted to
Yeah,
get
because they
import
want
coming from
to.
Mexico.
Yeah, they want to have made in Mexico, and
Yep.
even is a Chinese a factory.
Yeah.
India now is growing. You are East-West Bank. Well, are you going to open anything in India? Because all of a sudden the focus of this year, I mean last year, has been Japan and India.
Yeah, not yet. We were very proud to have a lot of our associates or employees that are of Indian descent.
Yes.
However, as an organization, we don't have the sort of like very strong technical knowledge or the cultural understanding of India like we do in China or the Southeast Asia and then whatnot. So what we do is that do what we do best. It takes a lot to understand the nuances between the East Asia culture and the U.S. and trying to understand the difference and figure out products that work best for the cross-border banking clients. And India is a completely different kind of
Completely
like
different.
culture, and it would take a much longer time for our team members to sort of like develop the expertise. And if I wanted to do that, I probably need to acquire a new group of strong experts
Of
to
course,
understand
of course,
that
of course. It
Yeah.
is completely
we
different.
may get there, but not now. Yeah, we may get there, but not at this point.
Because last year we know that all of a sudden the focus is India, Japan. How about Japan then?
Japan, well, Japanese already have many major financial institutions that came to U.S. back in the 80s, which Japan is fully banked. That's why East-West would not offer that much value to, let's say,
Because they have a lot of
Japanese
Japanese
corporations because, the MUFG, the major Japanese banks has been in the United States for the last 40 some odd years. So we can't add much value, which is very different than the business from China.
Yes.
Yeah, because when, let's say for a business like a BYD will make electric battery and electric buses, when they came to the United States, they have no bankers with them. And so East-West can step in and then help them and then connect them to mainstream American business. But like for Japanese, they already been there for a long time. Yeah.
You are also bringing you are the chairman of the American Friends of M+. Right. So the whole idea, the whole backup is you are a personality, a well-known person in America. So our Hong Kong Museum, M+, has been deeply needing your help because we want to have American collectors there. We want to have American donors. How are you seeing for the future? How are you going to bring to Hong Kong? Anyway, you're
yeah,
Hong Kong.
yeah. I think optimistically, I think that it will get better. Unfortunately, for the last 5 years, Hong Kong has been going through the most devastating time.
Most devastating.
Right? I mean, with the first is the protest,
Protest.
and then because Hong Kong got locked down longer than anybody else, the protest in effect was somewhat of a lockdown, and then
The COVID.
COVID 4 years. So I think Hong Kong just started coming back, and last year,
Actually, Hong Kong just relaxed the mask last March.
oh wow, yeah. See, that's why I just came back, and then last year, at Basel, I was pleased to see that. Well, with M Plus also just opened, and so we just kind of just started get back together, and I hope like this year at Basel we have even a bigger crowd internationally, as long as there are more people start coming to Hong Kong, attending art fairs, and seeing M Plus. What an incredible, beautiful building with great artwork. I think at that point, at some point, when the crowd start coming back in, it will be much easier for me to sort of exercise my chairmanship to do the right thing.
Because I was told, even by Art Basel, there's American galleries who refuse to go back to Hong Kong because they were talking about the protests, the human rights, and all that. Being the chairman of American Friends must be really difficult because the perception of Hong Kong was so bad that it puts off many of the even trustees of museums. They're not going back.
Yeah. So that's why
of American museums.
For the last 4 years, I did much better as the chair of the collection and exhibition committee of the Academy Museum in Los Angeles.
For the motion picture.
Yeah, the reason is that the building is here, and then it's easier. I mean, when you have a building, everything's going on, and the Academy has a big brand, it's much easier for me to do the work. But then the American Friends Foundation for M Plus was challenging because physically, first of all, the building was not finished.
Yes.
With COVID, no one could visit anyway. So there's no way to even market it. And then with all the restriction of, quarantine and all that kind of stuff, it just, we were putting on the hibernation mode. Basically it was dormant. But maybe now we can get something.
But the perception of China, of Hong Kong has been really not. I was talking with some American museum people. They are not bringing any trustees there because the perception of Hong Kong now has been damaged.
Yeah, and that's why it's something that we will need to watch and see how it progresses, because it may take a few more years before
Yes,
it gets,
I think so.
and then it will require a concerted effort also from the West Kowloon Cultural Center, M Plus, and then Hong Kong government with the tourist association.
yeah.
They all have to sort of like step in to see how they can reshape the image of Hong Kong. If they
Absolutely.
can't, is that a way that they can find a way to get Americans to start looking Hong Kong as one of the gem of Asia? So, but time will tell. I mean, at this point, it's too early for me to really be able to size up how soon Hong Kong will get back to the old glory.
The old glory. So nice to have you here, Dominic. Even after last night's dinner, there's so much we can talk about, from geopolitics to finance, your background. But I will continue to catch up with you when you're in Hong Kong. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Great. Thank you, Pearl, for inviting me here. And then I'm looking forward to seeing you in Hong Kong.
Thank you.